gbẹ́dọ̀gbẹ́dọ̀ fẹ́ figi ọ̀gẹ̀dẹ̀ gbẹ́ kí látẹ́gùn fẹ́ figi gẹ̀dú ṣe ọ̀rọ̀ mi lọ́wọ́ Olúwa ló wà. ọ̀rọ̀ mi lọ́wọ́ Olúwa ló wà.
Thank you for staying with us. And now we'll look at the National Forest Policy. In 2020, the federal government modified the 2006 National Forest Policy in order to manage and to engage in remedial measures for our forest, which has experienced heavy deforestation over the years. Nigeria was actually ranked the highest country with deforestation in the world. Wow. And that's according to a 2005 report by the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. All these stats sometimes just get you pretty worried. I mean, in the entire world, we are the one with the largest deforestation.
I don't know where to put it. The report, 2005, between 2002 and 2005, we lost about 55.7% of our primary forest. And, well, maybe this conversation we're about to have will tell us the implications on climate.
And have you noticed when you travel out of Lagos, for instance, in any direction, you do go through huge patches of forest. But of course, we don't know how deep it is. We can only see it from the road.
Well, when I was in secondary school, I lived in the school in Oyo. So I traveled from Lagos to Oyo. I would travel between Lagos and Ibadan Expressway. The roadsides were not as developed as they are now. They weren't as developed as they are now. A lot of forests, a lot of more patches of greens were seen, contrary to what we have now. Is this part of what government is talking about?
Well, we have experts who are going to answer that question and many other questions with us this morning. This morning, it's my pleasure to welcome Professor Adeshola Olatunde Adepoju, the Director General, Forestry Institute of Nigeria, FRIN, Ibadan. He joins us from our studio in Abuja. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, ma. Thank you for having me.
Right. Now, we have just you at the moment, so we'll just go ahead and deal with the issue at hand. So, Prof, this new policy, what is the main crux? What are the main issues that this policy raises?
Thank you. The policy really is to update our various approaches to tackle the issues that we were not anticipating or that we never anticipated that has been contributing to deforestations in the country. You remember the first of it was done sometimes in 1988, then followed by 2006, and this of 2020. And because of various issues that has been confronting us in maintaining our forest estate, this informed the review of the policy, and it was passed in year 2020, which we had a discussion on it yesterday, to still see how we can probably have it by decade now, in view of various challenges we're facing in the forest estate.
The challenge here, Prof, would be carrying people along. Yes, we heard the Minister of Environment, Dr. Mohammed Abubakar, say that the new National Forest Policy, recently approved by the Federal Executive Council, will greatly assist the country in the sustainable management of its vast forest resources. But we all know, well, you may be able to speak to it, whether or not we have a system of monitoring the forests so that the objectives of the policy are fulfilled as intended. The federal government cannot be in all forest areas all over at the same time. Yes, we have forest guards and all. The state government cannot also be able to cover everything. So it falls to us to find a way to communicate with the various communities to ensure that they also help government in achieving this feat. Is this something that you see happening?
Yeah, now thank you. We're working together with communities now. In the past, you realize everybody work in silos, but now we're working together with communities. And if you remember, 2019, September to be precise, after the UNGA program, where the president made commitment that the federal government will be planting about 25 million trees annually, we realized that we have to reverse our past approaches and now do a bottom-top approach by working with the communities, identifying those tree species that they have sociocultural or socioeconomic attachment to, as well as helping them to build those forests, even if it is not our land, which is one of the problems we're facing. So now we're doing a bottom-top approach, working directly with community to ensure that they are the drivers of this area afforestation, knowing fully well that majority of the land in the country after the Land Use Act is with the state government, and it's just the federal reserves and the land in the hand of national parks that are actually the federal government land that we are planting, and we're almost running out of planting them. So we don't have a choice now than to work with communities, private sectors, and state government in populating our forest estate.
I agree with those who, talking about the communities now, would you agree with those who said that deforestation has also led to the, was part of the reason we had the farmer-herder crisis over the years? If you agree, how has this policy helped to curtail that?
Part of what this policy is saying is that we must look into our agricultural practices in Nigeria. In Nigeria, we do more of what we call extensive farming instead of intensive farming, where you take a little land and manage it properly and even turn it around on various crops or the same crop, but severally within a year. If we practice intensive farming system, then this will limit the clashes between farmers and the herders. And we've also come up with another practice that we call agroforestry practice, where a farmer can integrate his agricultural practices within the forest and will also be earning at least 10 times more than what he will be earning if he's practicing agriculture alone. So with agroforestry practices and intensive agricultural practices, this will reduce the clashes between farmers and the herders.
We've since been joined by Dr. Joseph Onoja, who is the Director of Technical Programs, Nigerian Conservation Foundation. Good morning.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us.
Yes, my pleasure.
Now, Ayo gave some frightening statistics at the beginning of this segment, and I would want to ask you, how is it that Nigeria has the greatest deforestation rate in the world?
Yep.
What are we doing to our forests, and who is doing those things?
Actually, when the Brits started all of these in the early 1900s, and we had sustainable forest management system where forests are being developed for timber and some other uses. And then there was also the part that they were set aside to be able to, at least, because you cannot continue to cut without replacing. So after they left, we inherited that part of the cutting, But unfortunately, we didn't inherit the part of the planting and protecting what we have. So we continued in a wanton destruction of our forest, and that is why we are where we are today.
Were we destroying or consuming?
I think both, because when you talk about consumption, we will have done it sustainably and we have done it responsibly. But if we talk about destruction, you find that people will just harvest without necessarily utilizing to the level at which we can utilize. Even up to now, I must say, because even our sawmill industry has not really, we've not utilized all the value chain that we can utilize from wood products. Because when you go to some of these sawmills and some of these where they work, you will see a lot of sawdust lying fallow, doing nothing. Whereas these can also be channeled into being briquettes or into being some other uses that will help. So we've not utilized them as we should have. This should have been really institutionalized.
What are briquettes used for?
For firewood. They use for, instead of using firewood, cutting down our trees, we can use those byproducts of already cut down trees to be able to produce, to use it for burning for. And firewood is one of the major drivers of deforestation, at least within the country. Now talk about our exports of what we are exporting, what we don't have.
Dr. Onoja, the woman in the village will tell you that using firewood will be cheaper than using briquette or whatever it is.
No, eventually, because using firewood, you see, it's not only, it doesn't have just the health implication, it has also social implications. Because by the time you produce these briquettes, it reduces the time for which these women who are at the receiving end go looking for this firewood.
But it'll cost more because it's been through a factory. Yeah, it's been through a sawmill.
No. If you see, over time, the prices will have gone down. Over time, if we had institutionalized this and made it something that we are really good at, the price will have gone down. So that the headache with which you go and look for firewood out there, the time you use that you'll have used it for other things, probably training yourself into something more productive, you will have, at least you put that time into the briquettes, and then it will be, at long run, it will be cheaper. So you'll not just be looking at the cost in terms of the money, cash, but you're looking at it in terms of the other conveniences, the health implications, and so on. Because firewood, when you use it, you know, the smoke it produces and the health implication it has. So at the long run, it's much more expensive.
Well, Prof spoke earlier to the presidential, should I call it presidential directive of planting about 25 million trees in a year. Since when and over how many years?
Yeah, so that directive came up after the hunger. I think that was the hunger in 2019 or 2020, and they have operationalized it by setting up the National Forestry Trust Fund, which has really done some great work in that regards, and in terms of disbursing funds to make that happen. So it's not something that is just going to be that we have to deliberate in the actions that we take. And if we can plant this, if we can make this in 5 years, it will be good. But even shorter time will even be better. If we're talking about 5 years, we're talking about 5 million trees per year.
Okay, what's the process? I understand your organization is also supposed to be in the process.
Yeah, so the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, we are very active when it comes to with the forestry sector in Nigeria in terms of ensuring that our forest estates remain what it should be. And that's why you can see the shirt I'm wearing, the Green Recovery Nigeria project that we program, that we try to bring back our forests from the dwindling between 5%, 4% that we have currently to the ambitious amount of 25% at least. So we're involved in that process, and we're trying to see what we can do to ensure that but it has to be all hands needs to be on deck. Okay. And this has to be, it's not something that only one person will do. When I came in, I heard Prof talking about the private sector. Private sector has to come in terms of putting funds into it, and in terms of also managing the areas that they can manage. Because currently we work with some private sector to be able to protect some the forest land that they have. So it's not just about the planting, but also protecting the green spaces that are already there.
How many trees between 2019 and now would you say? Have we done 5 million or 10 million trees already?
Well, we as an organization, I can talk about what we have done. as NCF.
Okay.
2020, we did 2020, 2021, we did between, no, 2019, sorry, 2019, 2020, we did between 1.7 million. Last year, because of the flow from the COVID year, we did 127,000 trees that we planted. Okay. So for us, we don't only just plant, as I said, we manage some forest estates as well.
Let me ask Prof that question. Prof, between 2019 and now, if we go by the stats that Dr. Onoja just gave, we should have come up with something between 15 and 20 million trees already. Do we have up to that yet? Just saying.
Yeah, we have more than that.
Oh, really?
Like I told you, the president made that statement on the 23rd of September 2019 where we were at Onga. And I was giving marching order to coordinate that. And in 2020, we did about 20 million. But when we say we plant about 20 million, what we're saying is that that's what's planting, but it's not necessarily means that's what we survive. You still have to do beating up, and you still have to do at least 2-3 years follow up on the management to have substantial percentage or whatever you planted to have done well or survived. But you also will agree with me that security challenges in the country have not allowed so many of these fields to be revisited and to see what we're doing. But at least in 2020, we did about 20 million planting. Last year, like Dr. Noja mentioned, it wasn't as much as what we did in year 2020. I think by and large, we were able to do between 7 to 8 million, merging all the stakeholders together. And we're already planning this year. As I speak to you, at least my organization has raised about 10 million seedlings now. And by the time I'll add that of NCF, with Great Green Wall, with Federal Department of Forestry, with DDA, and etc. There's the body into the wood export also raise seedlings, and we also help them to plant as technical backup to whatever they are doing. We're planning this year because they are not taking it easy with us. We are asked to step up beyond what we started. And the marching order we have this year is that we must surpass what we did 2019-2020, which is what we're working towards now.
Yeah, Prof, how much awareness is going on, especially in the rural areas, about the issue of deforestation, and especially how it causes or how it impacts on climate change?
Thank you, Ma. I think that is a bit challenging, because if you have to stop the people in the rural area from using fuel wood, then you must provide alternative source of energy for them. Like my brother Onoja mentioned, briquette is the simplest and the easiest you can provide for them, which is from waste, which we're working on. We fabricate such machine that we share to rural communities to be able to convert such waste and leftover in their farm to briquettes to support their whatever. And we also plant for them what we call woodlot. Woodlot is allowed, where you plant those species that they can use as firewood. But in all, we felt we should be encouraging them in clean energy that could also help their earth. That's what we're working about. So many NGOs, so many stakeholders are reaching out to communities to support them. But you understand that some of them also find it difficult. In fact, the campaign now is to let them know that using gas is even cheaper on so many fronts than the firewood or the fuelwood.
But then there are those who are going to ask you, Prof, with the price of gas today, let's go there. But there's this other vexed, issue around some of the things that you have raised, and that is the process of even cutting these trees. There are those who wonder what is being done, perhaps by you as Director General of the Forest Institute of Nigeria, or whoever is supposed to be in charge, of foreigners who come into the country, go into our forests, cut down trees, and export them willy-nilly? Is this something that you are aware of, or the government is aware of, and that is being dealt with?
Thank you. That is being handled. I'm the technical sub-chair of NFTF, and it's part of our discussion at the forest policy meeting that we had yesterday. The challenges are many, but I'll just talk about a few of them. Like I said, the federal can only issue policies by Land Use Act of 1978. The custody of this land, most of the where we have these resources, lies with the states. And most of the states do not defer back to the Federal Ministry of Environment to even seek for advice or understanding on what they could do with their forests before issuing permits to foreigners to cut. And I just came back from CITES meeting. CITES is the Convention on International Trade for these species that are controlled by the international body. And so many of our products have been banned, and some are issued, even when so many foreign countries have been advised not to pick up this product. But Federal Ministry of Environment or NFTF, we're not at the port, and we don't have control over the port. But we're talking with all the stakeholders, and as I speak to you, there is a ban sort of on so many of these wood from being taken out of the country. But whether it's effective is another issue that we're looking at, and that's why the Honorable Minister of Environment is looking at convening a meeting in no distant time from now to see how we can all talk to ourselves and move forward. And it's not out of place to sell your wood abroad, but we're saying it should be done following the international standard. What the international standard agree with is that these woods must be processed from the country of origin before taking out. And you can also do business in wood. Take, for example, if you're into what we call Tectona grandis, that stick that takes 10 years to mature, and you want to do business of 1 hectare per year, that means you can plant 11 hectares of it. That after every year of harvesting, you still have 10 hectares standing. But most of the people in the business wouldn't want to plant, and they still want to be in the business. But we're looking at all of it holistically and see how best we can control this illegal exporting of Nigeria wood resources.
Okay.
Dr. Onaja,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
From what he said, I was just wondering how much cooperation and buy-in you have from those at the ports where these woods exit.
That's it's a problem that we are dealing with, not just for wood, but all illegally sourced wildlife products in Nigeria. Nigeria is, if you look at the map of illegal trade in the world, Nigeria is painted red. Nigeria is known as majorly as a transit country. That is, other wildlife products come from other countries, not just even from Africa. Sometimes they come from other countries outside of Africa, come through Nigeria so they can go to Asia, especially. And so that is a major problem, which those of us, many stakeholders in the illegal wildlife trade, combating illegal wildlife trade space, we have been meeting, and I know that the federal government, Federal Ministry of Environment, is launching the strategy on it, combating illegal wildlife trade and forest crimes on Monday. And it's part of the things that have come together, because those at the ports also have a major role to play, because and those at the ports also have their own challenges, because when you have a 40-foot container and you want to bring down everything from that container, I mean, let's be very practical, you want to bring down everything from that container, before you see what is inside. They have very heavy items in front, so whatever is behind is very difficult. So if you don't have scanners to be able to make that happen, it becomes very difficult. So this is an opportunity to call on those responsible, especially the federal government, to provide scanners. But even when you provide scanners, the challenge is that people who are a cartel in that place will also sabotage that operation. So these are some of the things that we have to look at holistically. Because when you don't scan these things,
are these cartels? Are they foreigners?
No, they are Nigerians. Funnily, they are Nigerians. So it's still us. So there's a need for a total overhaul. I know there's a special crime unit in the customs that had been created, because I must say that the siege of the custom is quite proactive and has been very proactive in this, and that's why you can see the seizures that's been happening. But these seizures, we have to do a lot of intelligence, because the people that are arrested when these seizures happen are just the leg soldiers. There are some big guns, the beasts behind them. We need to also grab those ones. So there are a lot of intelligence that has to go in, a lot of investigation that has to happen.
So when you talk about proactiveness, you are talking about preempting the offences from the very sources.
Yes, so that doesn't even get to the port, because the port is the last place it should get to. It shouldn't even get to the port.
Okay, there's another angle to this whole deforestation thing, and that's urbanization. Is it possible to have forests in urban Nigeria? I asked that question against the backdrop of population expansion. There is the rural-urban population that has not stopped, and I don't see how it's going to stop. And so we have to clear more areas so that we can build houses for many of these people to live. We have to clear roads, clear forests, so that roads can be built, urbanization and all those things, can be better for the people. So where do we find the balance?
Yeah, well, just like these policies that has just been launched, there are lots of policies in Nigeria for different things, different operations. And the implementation or the operationalization of these policies are very, very important, because they're as good as the policies, if not even better. Because there's no use having a policy that you cannot operationalize. You see, in envisaging all of these potentials, there was a policy in terms of, for instance, I know in Lagos, there's a policy that says that every 20% of the land should be green. How much has that policy been implemented? So we have a lot of concrete jungles around. So we are not averse to development, but that development should take care of the environment, because of the very important role environment plays. Because if we don't have this, it eventually bites us back. The heat index in Lagos will be rising because there are no absorption centers. So to answer your question directly, yes, it's very possible for us to have urban forestry. We normally pride ourselves at the Lekki Conservation Center as a place. Our visionaries in the first place, 30 years ago, 32 years ago, set aside that place. It was a degraded land, but now it is a replica of what used to be between VI and Ekpe, vegetation landscape. The junction before us used to call Igbo Efon, but on the other hand, the forest of, the forest of buffaloes. But now it's all concrete jungle. So it takes willpower to be able to make that happen. And I'm sure a lot of people will be looking at that space and be wondering in their heads how many estates will have gone in there. Okay. But the kind of service, the kind of ecosystem service that place provides, is so enormous.
This kind of conversation that you have to take up with every state government in Nigeria.
Yes, exactly.
And I also recall that
we're trying to do that.
Yeah,
as well.
I also recall that at some point, when the former governor Fashola was just planting trees all over Lagos.
Flower. That was his nickname.
Yes. So it takes people who understand the interconnectivity of these things to be able to, because at the end of the day, when we prosper without a planet, we are just heading to doom. You see, there's this pyramid, this prosperity pyramid that has the people, prosperity, and the planet. People have turned it upside down. They think that you have to prosper first, then you satisfy people, then you have the planet to take care of. No. It's the other way around. It is the planet first. And under that planet, there's this chunk of the forest that we need to really, really take care of because of the service they provide for us. Then we have the people, and then we have prosperity, and that is how it should flow.
Well, you have to do a lot of educating for that to happen. Let me ask.
That is lacking at the moment from what Professor said.
And which is why, the collaboration, Prof, that you're talking about is quite important. On the one hand, as you said earlier, the lands are under the direct purview of the state governments. And here is a national policy on forests, national forest policy. So that collaboration that you talked about is very, very important. What are the inhibitions to the collaboration? You spoke about the fact that, you know, maybe is it the state governments now that, you know, give licenses for the trees to be cut and all of that. You have talked about the need for that collaboration to happen. It is one thing to have the policy, as Dr. Onoja said. It's another thing altogether to implement it. And it's the implementation that talks about whether or not this policy is viable. So let's speak to us about the collaboration, the inhibitions that are in the way of that collaboration, and how we need, as a people, to get behind it and align our purposes in that regard.
Thank you, my brother. I think let me just talk about three of them. The first, like I mentioned, is to get some of these states on board. I think after we returned from New York 2019, the minister then met with the Nigeria Governors Forum, and I must commend some of the governors then, the governor of Kaduna State, Niger, and Adamawa, then some of the others from the south also spoke well at that meeting. But since then, we have planted 1 million trees with Kaduna State government. Niger State government also took up by 1 million from us. Some other organizations also worked in Adamawa State, Taraba State, and all of that. But it's only Kaduna, as I speak to you, that has negotiated about, I don't have the figure here, some hectares of land, and said this hectares of land is willing to hand over to us to work on it. And we have done MOU with some other state. So this is the way to go about the state ceding some of their land to, not to federal government so that the own state government is taking their land, but to do an MOU on the land to say, okay, this 8,000 hectares of land is given to Federal Ministry of Environment under this MOU strictly to be used for planting and to probably revegetate any degraded part of their state. That would be good. The second is tree planting goes beyond just the annual planting. If you don't have the resources to manage that plantation for at least 3 years, then it's as good as you have wasted all the efforts of the year you planted the seedlings. The third is the security of what you have planted, security and maintenance of what you have planted, because after 2-3 years, if there's any bush burning around there, then you've lost all the seedlings. Or if there are security challenges and you can't access that particular environment again, then what happens to what you have planted? So if these three issues I've mentioned can be overcome, then we're good to go.
Talk to us about, well, you talked about this security thing. I thought that that was part of the job of the park rangers. And also to talk to us about the collaboration or input of local government administrations or officials all over the place, because I believe that they also have a responsibility in that regard. We'll talk about the agriculture bit in a bit.
Yeah. Park rangers are not the same as forest guards. Park rangers are just in the those land that are in the holding of federal government. Presently, we have 7 national parks. Government has just approved another 10. That will take us to 17. And if you take those places together, those who manage the parks are the park rangers, who are the securities of that of those parks. But the forest guard are actually the security of our forest. And most of these forest guard, or entirely all of them, those days from the state, they send them to us annually to train them, to update them on how to go about their activities in the forest. But I can tell you authoritatively that in the last 10 years, no state has sent any forest guard to Forestry Research Institute of Nigeria or any of its colleges for training. So we're just interfacing with state now to bring that back. Some being trained by the state now under the whatever security structure of the state, but they still have to send them to us to train so that they can, because those days, if you go back to 20, 30 years, in fact, they are those who always provide either the DSS or the security apparatus of the country with information about what goes on in the forest. But since most of them are retired and the population is no longer there for them to do such work, so that has to be taken up again, and we'll see what we'll do from there. Then you talk about the issue of agriculture.
No, we'll come to that, Prof. Before we go to that one, let's talk about what's the role for local government. I'm glad you mentioned the part of forest guards. I mistook them for the parks. The local governments, they are closer to the forests, it would seem. Is there any conversation with them? Is there any role that they can play, or is it just the states that we have to speak with?
In fact, the local government are the people that will nominate those who come for this training in the past. And the certificate issued to them is part of what they use for them for promotions then. But like I mentioned earlier on, in the last 10 years, no state, no local government has sent anybody to Forest Research Institute of Nigeria or any of my 7 colleges for training.
Interesting. So let me start the agricultural components of that conversation with Dr. Onoja. There has to be collaboration between the Federal Ministry of the Environment and the Federal Ministry of Agriculture. On the one hand, we don't want to go hungry. We want to deal with food security, but at the same time, we have the climate to protect, the environment to protect. There has to be a very delicate balancing act.
Yeah, so there's a need for an interministerial committee or partnership that will look at what we call the driver ministries and the Ministry of Environment. Because if there's not that collaboration, and very strong collaboration for that matter, it will be as if they are working out cross purposes. Because on one hand, go and deforest, go and clear up all the lands we have for agriculture. We have very arable land for agriculture. But on the other hand, we need to protect our forest reserves because we need to because of what they provide. So there's that, and that conversation needs to be had so that people will know that currently we don't have the correct accounting for our forest reserves.
Okay.
What they provide. So people look at that as if, it's just currently it's just 0.34%. If you look at it, but by the time you do all the services it provides, it's way much more than that. So it's not just about the agriculture. You may find people,
You're talking about the natural capital accounting.
Yes. Okay. So you may provide food for people, but they will not be healthy at the end of the day because you need the forest assets as well. So there's that need for that collaboration to be there between the ministries, and that is where. But because when you want to expand in terms of agriculture, you need the advice from the Ministry of Environment to say how to go about it. Okay. And that's why this issue of agroforestry is coming up. So you don't have to clear every land before you farm. There's a agroforestry.
We'll come to that. Let me ask, because it doesn't sounds like it's not only the Ministry of Agriculture.
No, we have Ministry of Transport.
No. I mean that have direct responsibility on the forests. Prof, it would seem like the Ministry of Solid Minerals is also involved in that. So that balancing act, how are you going about it? You talked about the fact that you're already collaborating and all of that. So the question that I'm wondering, asking you right now is, it's a very delicate balancing act. Everyone has to do what they have to do by law, but at the same time, we all have to work together to protect this planet by what Dr. Onoja is saying. That collaboration is not just between the federal government and the states. It's also between the federal government and the federal government.
In fairness, I think at this level we are talking. Remember that all of us were in Federal Ministry of Agri before. All of us were in Federal Ministry of Agri before the creation of Federal Ministry of Environment in 1999, year 2000, and FEPA was upgraded to Federal Ministry of Environment. We used to be in Agric, and the same thing with National Park. I think we're talking, but we must not forget that federal government is just to provide the environment and to the policy, to provide the policy. Most of these activities, like I earlier mentioned, still take place in the state. And some states are forthcoming, are collaborating well with federal institutions, and we're working together. It's just to get the entire governors forum on board and to let them embrace and understand better. And like in the issue of accounting, if you still go to CBN report or Federal Ministry of Finance, you have to be picking them across the list because Agric is not stated clearly from environment. Every produce from the forest is still seen as under the Agric. So we're just trying to delete some of those ones and create a different line for environment output, if I can say that for now. So I think we're talking, just that we're not there yet, and we hope that very soon everything will be okay.
Okay, Prof, we have to close now, so we just like your parting shot on this. In one sentence, please.
It's just to keep encouraging everybody to come on board, and like what you have done this morning is to enlighten the Nigerians better. I keep telling people one of the products that is difficult to sell or to educate people is issue that has to do with environment or forestry in particular, because how many people are really interested? We talked about the urban forestry, so many people building houses and not even knowing the importance of having trees around them. And there's no how you won't be choking, because the only thing that provides the oxygen you breathe is the trees, and take up the carbon dioxide that you exhale. So the more green you have around you, the better the life will be, because it's all about life.
Thank you, Professor. Dr. Onoja, one sentence.
Okay, so we need to take responsibility individually. Yes, at individuals, to make sure that we have green around us. For instance, during our birthdays and things that commemorate anniversaries, let's use that as an opportunity to have more greens in our environment.
How many
Dr. Joseph Onoja, Director, Technical Programs, Nigerian Conservation Foundation, who was in our studio in Lagos, and Professor Adeshola Adekweju, the Director General, Forestry Institute of Nigeria, FRIN, in Ibadan. But he joined us from our studio in Abuja. Thank you very much for coming to enlighten us this morning.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Sunrise will be right back. Do stay with us.